talk about how to build an image. For simple objects, in this case, in this illustration, there's one bowl and a simple background. The way I like to build up a picture is to go from the bottom up. So I'll start with my ground, which we did in the previous exercise. So here's your ground area. And then my next step, after I have that ground area, and of course after I have an actual drawing in there, is I will paint in the shadow, the cast shadow first. So here's my bowl, and here's the light coming from kind of up top. And what that does is that bowl will cast a shadow on the surface of the ground. So something like this. So we have our bowl and we have our shadow that's being cast by the object. So once you have that, the next thing I like to do is I'll add a second layer, and of course I'm making sure I have enough water so it doesn't get too dark too fast. So with my cast shadow, I'm going to add a second layer to it to make it darker by another step. And so now here's my second layer. Now, once I have that established, I'm going to take what I call, or what they call a liner brush, which just basically looks like a brush with a very thin line on it. And then for that, I'm going to basically fill it up with a lot of dark paint. And since I'm working with black and white, this is going to be the darkest. So I'm basically going to go full black. So this is the gray area that I've been using for the cast shadow. And this is basically a lot of pigment with a little less water. So it's almost full black. So with the full black, I'm going to sort of line the surface where the bowl touches the ground. So right where that bowl touches the ground, there's very little light that kind of seeps through. So it's going to be very dark. And let's go ahead and zoom in on that so we can get a closer look. So as you can see, along right here, there's that area that gets very, very, very dark. And then for good measure, I'm going to go over it again. So this will be my second pass, just to get it to go that dark. So I like to call that sort of my super black or my super dark, and that's just the area of my painting that's going to be very dark. So these areas where objects touch the surface, that tend to be kind of your darkest areas. And then once I have that, I'll go ahead and just add a background to it. Because I want to be able to frame the bowl well, I'm just going to add a background that's sort of in the darker range. So, and for something like this, I'll use my smaller brush to kind of paint around my existing drawing. And then I'll go over that later on with a larger brush to kind of cover the entire background. Okay, and then from there, I'll take my larger brush. This is my larger brush, and then I'll go ahead and just work my background. Now, certain sections here, I'm going to make sure I go over it a couple of times so that edge, I don't have any hard edges. So this here is going to be a harder edge, so I'll make sure I go over that a couple of times with the brush so that that edge disappears. So now we have part of that darker background here. Alright, let's go ahead and knock that down. Now here there's sort of a subtle effect going where it's lighter here and gets darker here, but kind of looking at this now, I think I kind of want to push that effect a little bit more. So what I'll do is I'll add another layer for this. So I'll make this a little bit darker as well. And then let's go ahead and carry this through all the way to this point. Just make sure you soften that edge right there. Then go ahead and lock it down. And then let's add yet another layer down here up to this point here. And then along that edge, of course, we're going to need to soften that edge so that that line disappears. Alright, now it's really starting to feel like that light is on the left, and it's sort of getting darker as it's sort of further away from the light. Now we can also do that with the background as well. So with the background, we can also do the same thing. Go ahead and add a layer to the background. And again, we'll go up to that number 1 line. Alright, so we have something like this. And that line obviously is too harsh, so let's go ahead and soften that. And you can do that a number of ways, including kind of going with strokes that go kind of horizontal, just to kind of soften that edge so that it disappears. Let's go ahead and just get rid of that. Sometimes to do that, I like to kind of tilt my brush to the side, so sort of the long side is kind of touching the surface of the paint. Okay. You know, and sometimes it's actually not, getting a good, nice soft can be a little challenging at times. Okay, and then one more time, I'm going to add an extra layer, this time over around this side right here. So we'll start on the end, and then where this stops, I'm going to stop right there. And then we'll just do our best to kind of soften that edge. Alright, now we're getting kind of a feel that the light is definitely coming over from the left side. Now in our next few lessons, we're going to talk about objects and form. And so it is in those lessons where I'll talk about how to handle painting the object itself. So we're going to go through some of the very simple objects: a cylinder, a rectangle, and a bowl.